Good morning, everybody. Format this morning is we're going to open the meeting. We're going to go into closed session. When we come back, there'll be a public session. All right. Madam Clerk?
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec, notice of which was sent to the record in the Star Ledger and was posted on the municipal bulletin board.
Yes. Roll call?
Councilmember Battaglia?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Here.
Councilmember Sims?
Here.
Councilmember Greenman is absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Here. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Battaglia?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Aye.
Councilmember Sims?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman is absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye.
Whereas pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act, the council plans to discuss personnel matters and litigation matters involving an employee. And whereas pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act, the council plans to discuss personnel matters and litigation matters involving an employee in a closed session. And whereas pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, the council plans to discuss the information discussed only upon written consent of the employee. And now therefore let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Hackensack hereby plans to enter into closed session on June 26, 2014 to discuss personnel matters involving the city manager and litigation, Anthony Rattino versus City of Hackensack, and such discussions shall not be open to the public unless the employee submits a signed request to the city clerk requesting the discussion to be held in public. And be it therefore resolved that the City Council's discussions shall not be disclosed to the public except as required by law.
Is it possible? City manager, interim city manager.
Yeah, I'll clarify. Both personnel matters. Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, the personnel matter would involve the interim city manager and the position of the interim city manager.
Very good. Everybody ready? All right.
No,
Want a motion to?
Motion,
Motion
second.
to go into closed session?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Battaglia?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Aye.
Councilmember Sims?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman's absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. At this point, I'd like a motion to open the meeting, reopen the meeting.
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Battaglia?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Aye.
Councilmember Sims?
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman's absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. At this point, I'd like a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Mayor.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, first, my mistake. We have a resolution to read?
Yes. This is a resolution appointing Art Coster as interim city manager. Whereas the city of Hackensack is governed under the 1923 municipal manager form of government, NJSA 40:82-1 et sec. And whereas Anthony W. Rattino has been interim city manager since December 17, 2013. And whereas on June 23, 2014, Mr. Rattino has filed an action in the Superior Court of New Jersey entitled Anthony Rattino versus City of Hackensack, the complainant. And whereas Mr. Rattino has asserted in the complaint, among other allegations, that the work environment is so hostile that no reasonable person would remain employed under such circumstances, and that he has been constructively discharged. And whereas, given this allegation and its meaning under the law, Mr. Rattino has taken the legal position that he is no longer the interim city manager effective June 23, 2014. And whereas the city is legally required to have a city manager pursuant to NJSA 40:81-11 and NJSA 40:82-1, and whereas pursuant to NJSA 40:82-6, the City Council may appoint a qualified person to exercise the powers and perform the duties of the office of the city manager during his/her absence. And whereas the City Council finds it in the city's best interest to appoint Art Coster as the interim city manager until a permanent city manager is hired. And now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Hackensack that Anthony W. Rattino has taken the legal position that he is no longer the interim city manager effective June 23, 2014, and that Art Coster be and hereby is appointed interim city manager.
May I have a motion, please?
Offer.
Second. Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman's absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Thank you. No. At this time, I make a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman is absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. At this time's public session, I need to remind everybody that a lot of this is involves litigation. I'm sure a lot of the questions are going to be about this lawsuit. Very limited amount of response will be given. All right, so take that into consideration. Thank you.
Jason Nettemacher, Prospect Avenue. So he's still employed as the economic director
That is correct.
at the same at the 125?
No, that wasn't the original salary.
Whatever his original salary
That is
was,
original salary, yes.
and he's being paid today.
Correct.
He hasn't been to work in how long?
Not sure, Jason, at the exact amount.
And he's still getting health insurance. He's still covered under our policy.
At this time, yes.
So all of his emotional distress that he's suffering, I'm assuming he's seeking medical treatment for, he's submitting claims under his insurance policy.
Mayor, if I could just jump in, this, as Jason knows, there is a litigation that is pending, and obviously the mayor can't answer a lot of the questions concerning litigation. I'll just say this: under the form of government that Hackensack has, there are only certain appointments and terminations that the city council has authority over. The city manager happens to be one of them, and the council has taken action to appoint an interim city manager today. Under the form of government in Hackensack, the director of economic development reports to that city manager. And so that is not some action, and I know what your question was, that whether he's employed and whether the council was going to take any action with respect to that position. It's not something that the council itself can do. So the council can only do certain action with respect to the personnel decisions of the city, and it's taken that action now. Obviously, this
Is
is...
Mr. Coster going to terminate him in 5-10 minutes?
I know that would be your
a nod,
question.
a little, cough twice?
We're
All right.
obviously, it's a personnel issue, and it's going to have to remain that way for the time being.
Good morning, Rich Gilbert.
Morning.
I want to mention something. I hear a lot of scuttlebutt around. Some of it true, some of it I guess just gossip. Something I've heard in the past 2 or 3 days kind of makes a lot of sense to me. Putting Mr. Coster in as acting city manager now, in essence, he's been acting city manager really from Christmas time. Have you found your workload dramatically increased in the last few months?
It's usually pretty good anyway.
Yeah. I don't think we're really
Yeah.
making too much of a change. Mayor, I have a concern with one thing. I don't know how impartial McElroy can be giving you advice on this matter. I don't know what the harm would be. I mean, I see 3 lawyers in this room. We're going to have a whopper of a bill today. Why can't we have a special counsel, limit them to 5 or 10 hours work to give consultation reference to the Rotino matter?
Mayor, if I could answer that. The council today had in executive session Dominic Carmagnola of the Carmagnola and Ricciardi firm, which is an approved labor and employment attorney by the city's procurement process through last July, who provided advice to the city council today with regard to the Rotino matter in total.
Okay, fair enough. I have a question to ask. I'm gonna, hopefully it'll be answered, not on my time. I have to assume that Mrs. Canestrino was misquoted in the record today. It's not an uncommon thing that people are misquoted, but tell me you were misquoted, Ms. Canestrino?
If you're referring to the comment in today's record where it said, I believe it said, it used the word something like, I do not expect to see a change in any of the appointments that are going to be made in the future. That was not a direct quote. If you notice, there was no direct quotation marks around that. That was basically a discussion that was had between myself and the reporter, and this was the reporter's interpretation, I believe, of what was said. To be very clear about it, the question that was asked of me was, is there a plan to clean house and remove all of the appointments that had any connection to Mr. Rotino? And my answer to that question was, if there is such a plan, I know nothing of it. There is no plan.
I'm certain not, because you would do that
Absolutely.
sitting in the council
This-
chambers properly and with
I'm
meeting
actually
notice.
glad you brought this up, Mr. Gelber, because
You call
this
me-
is a
you
fair.
can call me Rich.
Rich, this is a fair and open process right now, and this council is 100% supportive of that. And in no way do I want it to be out known to the public that this RFP or RFQ process is tainted and that we are not giving any consideration to new people that are applying. We are encouraging people to apply. The jobs are all posted on our website. And this council will make decisions based on the firms or the personnel who are the most qualified and the best suited to represent the city of Hackensack. And if that means there's going to be changes, that means there's going to be changes. But we take this job very seriously, and we expect to have good and qualified people apply for these positions, and we will do our best. I can only speak for myself, but I know I'm speaking for the council, and that we will do our best to put in place the people that represent the city in the best light. Absolutely, 100%.
Mrs. Catastrito, I know by city manager form of government, I'm not an authority on it, but I know that the city council does not handle day-to-day personnel matters. I would hope you'd have an eye on it and have some consultation with the new city manager. I strongly urge, I guess, the acting city manager revisit some personnel matters that have occurred under Mr. Rotino's eye. I think there are some things done that I really honestly don't feel that this council would have taken part in, would have agreed with, or would have condoned. I'm just asking you to look at some of the personnel matters and things that happened. Mr. Coster was working under the authority of Mr. Rotino. Anyone here who served in the military, you have to do what you're told, and I appreciate that. I think you need to look at some things because I think some very, very egregious things were done. And I really want the council to look at it. I ask you, have all department heads here and the media been advised that Mr. Amarato is no longer affiliated with the city of Hackensack? I think that has to be done immediately.
Fair?
I'll handle it.
You see that?
God only knows what press releases could possibly sneak out.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you for your taking the action you have, and I have a feeling that Mr. Coster is going to do what he is able and has to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Salkin, Hackensack. I want to be direct. I want to be blunt. You folks fought for these seats for many years, mostly unsuccessfully, and then you finally won. And a number of us who tend to be involved in the process have been scratching our heads as to why you turned over power to a group of people with no connection to the city of Hackensack, the O'Toole people. I want to be very blunt, like I said. I think, I don't like to use the word purge, but that's pretty much what you got to do, I believe. Take back the control that you fought so hard for so long. You want to make a difference. Now is the time to do it. You know where the connections are. Dan Carolla got up a couple of meetings ago and painted the picture. And frankly, and I don't mean to embarrass, Kathy, I remember before you were elected, you came to a council meeting and you vehemently said you have to go to the Ferrioli hearing. You have to see how inept the attorney representing the city is. Recall that?
Yes, I do.
He's on the city payroll now. And frankly, I looked at your PAC reports and I see why he's getting work. You stood or claimed you stood for an end to pay for play. That's not what's going on. There's other connections. I don't want to embarrass Mr. Scrivo, but there seems to be some connection with Senator O'Toole. Mr. Scrivo's firm was hired as city attorney in the name of the firm. And yet the resolution, I've got it with me, hiring Mr. Fernandez doesn't mention it's O'Toole Fernandez. Why are we trying to duck that? O'Toole's involved in this. Take back the city now. You want it, do something. Make your legacy be, you did well.
Earl Warden, Elaine Terrace, Hackensack. Mrs. Catastrino, I was going to just sit here until I just heard you say something. I used to be a former employee, as you know, at the Recreation Department. Everyone who's down at the Recreation Department who has been hired since us, it was not posted. Those people, and one of them happens to be through Rotino. So no, all jobs that you have filled in the city from people that have left have been posted where you brought in the best candidate for that job. Because I can tell you from firsthand knowledge how you've destroyed the rec, and everyone who's down at the rec now besides Mrs. Ruggiero and the other one were just put there. The jobs were not posted where you did an interview and you weeded out and got the best person down there. So what you just said, you need to relook at what was done, especially down at the Recreation Department, because that's not how it was done at the rec since I left and since you removed Mr. Leosi. The people down there were not interviewed. They were just placed there. One of them happened to be placed there by Mr. Rotino. And I won't get into how the other ones got there, not today anyway. But you can revisit that.
May I answer?
Sure.
What I was referring to were appointments that are made through the city council, right? We were talking about, this was very specific to things, attorneys, engineering firms,
Okay.
et cetera. So this is a process that is going to occur annually, because these appointments are only made on a one-year basis. And in some ways, that's a good thing, all right? Because it gives you the opportunity to review the performance and to look at new applicants for those positions and make the most educated decision. What you're referring to now are employees, and that process is clearly defined through our HR department, and again, with full support of our city manager. Based on what your concerns are and any concern that's brought here, I'm sure our interim city manager and personnel director will look into that process, I assure you.
I like bringing things like this alive. I mean, you're saying, and I really wanted to research what this form of government is, because I've never heard of, I mean, I thought you guys were basically, actually like now Mr. Costner and other ones, you are ultimately our bosses. When I was working there, you're ultimately, everyone who works for the city of Hackensack, you are still ultimately their boss. You may set policies and everything else and guidelines that everyone must follow, but it comes from you that everyone must follow. Am I right or left?
We as a city council select policy. As far as making appointments, which we just talked about, that falls under our reign. The only two people that directly report to the city council is our city clerk and the city manager. Everyone else reports through the city manager.
Right.
So just as I believe the attorney explained before when questioned about Mr. Rotino's position, the only person that is in control of that position is the city manager, not the city council. So
right.
we're listening to your concerns, you're bringing them forward. I'm sure Mr. Costa,
Yes,
make a
I am.
note of this. We have policies as to how jobs are posted, how jobs are filled, and how people are interviewed for them. If they're not being followed, I'm sure Mr. Costa will take note and we'll fix it.
Okay, because see, Mr. Costner talks directly to you, and then whatever he says to you and whatever your opinion or whatever you view should be done or not done comes back to Mr. Costner.
No.
that we
These are his decisions to make. You're
His-
interpreting
okay,
this.
his decisions and his decisions alone, whether
Correct.
you like it or not.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Thank
Under our form of government, that's correct.
you. So the city manager almost is really over you guys.
No.
The city
He can make a
manager is
decision that
the chief
that
operating
you
officer
might
of
not
the
like
city.
and you can't change it.
Correct.
Mr. Warden, think of it as a corporation. The council is the board, right? But you have a chief operating officer that runs the company. That's basically very similar to what it would be.
Okay.
Good morning, Jared Wexler, 89 Burn Street. Just a couple of brief questions. I'm not sure entirely who to direct them to. First, I see we're being taped today. Is this being done by the city and will be available on YouTube, or is this another of Mr. Rotino's?
This is by the city.
Okay, I just wanted to know if we'd be able to view that.
It's a public meeting.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, Mr.
Let me
Costa.
rephrase that. It's a public meeting where voting occurred, okay?
Thank you. My other question is, Mr. Costa obviously is not going to tip his hand about whether Mr. Rotino will be retained for economic development. My question is, in that position, assuming that he goes forward, because we've been given no indication that he will not go forward in that position, does he have the ability to potentially sabotage anything? And maybe sabotage isn't the right word, but I don't think we can trust that Mr. Rotino going forward in that position is going to be acting in the city's best interest. Does he have access to files that maybe he should no longer have access to? Assuming he goes forward, will there be other people sitting in on those meetings, basically to babysit him and make sure that he cannot work against the city now that there is this pending litigation and obviously this split between he and the city of Hackensack?
Because of the litigation involved, I'll defer that to the attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, the residents' points will be taken. I think that the ordinance creating the position of Director of Economic Development sets forth the powers, duties, and functions of that position. That is something that is a personnel matter that will be discussed with Mr. Coster as well as counsel for litigation and city attorney, and the appropriate steps to protect the city's interest will certainly be taken.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agatha Toomey. Okay, I just wanted to ask, Mr. Rotino claims that he can't, I guess he can't be here as an interim city manager because it's a hostile work environment. He's not well. But I guess my question is, as a economic development director, isn't he, there's no hostile work environment in that capacity?
That would have to be determined by Mr. Rotino, not by us.
Oh, so, okay, so as interim city manager, he feels hostile work environment, but as economic development director, no. Because he's not working with the same people under that title, right? So there's no, right?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just jump in. I think this encroaches onto the issue of the litigation and the strategy, and I would not recommend a
Of course.
comment on that.
Well, I think, folks, today, we were duped, okay?
Regina DePasqua, Parker Avenue. Mr. Rotino, as Economic Development Director, allowed Ms. Killingettis a direct line for sending the resumes, for hirings, for whatever. This was while he was Economic Development Director, not as interim. That's according to the dates of the emails. This is what he was doing as Economic Development Director. First of all, nobody should have a direct line that is outside of the proper channels for hiring anybody, for submitting resumes. Nobody, and it's on video, Ms. Killingettis said she had a direct line, said this is what she was doing. And the emails say she sent them to Mr. Rotino. That has got to stop. If he's going to be in that position, is that his job as economic development? Is he supposed to accept resumes?
No, it's not.
Okay. He did it. He did it. I don't know how many of those people were hired by those submissions that was stated at open public meeting the other night, but that has to be looked into. That must be looked into, and that cannot continue. I know. He did a lot of stuff before he was an employee here, and it just, now we're paying him to turn around and sue us. It's incredible. The other thing, you threw me off, Rich. You threw me off. Today's article. I really had wished Ms. Greenman was here because she's quoted, and this is in quotes, that there are no complaints or reprimands in Mr. Amorato's file. There's a file?
Not
We
to my
keep a
knowledge.
file on a vendor?
Not to my knowledge.
I didn't think that was true. And also, there's no file, and there have been complaints. There have been complaints about his attacks on residents, his personal, making things personal, how he treated people. There have been complaints. So if there was a file, I was going to ask to see it because my complaints should be in there, other people's complaints should be in there. We no longer have a CFC Facebook page because he couldn't be civil on it, even though he wasn't a member of Citizens for Change. Anyway, I would like to see that ordinance reversed and abolish the position of economic development, because as I didn't run, I'm sorry, maybe I should have run. As the platform, it was going to be a committee. It was not going to be one person. It was going to be several people, checks and balances. There have been no checks and balances with Mr. Rotino. He's done a lot. I'm sure you weren't aware he was getting those resumes. I'm sure he didn't tell you where they were coming from and the hiring, because that's not your job, but it wasn't his job either, but he was doing it anyway. Filling positions, throwing people out, people forced to resign, forced to retire, strong-armed into it, from what I'm told, by certain residents, certain city employees, and then replaced with people from where? How did they come through it? Where'd their resumes come from? This is something has to be looked into, and according to what Ms. Keeling-Geddes said it in her own words, she was doing this. And she's not a city employee. She had no right to any access above any other city resident, but Mr. Rotino was allowing it to happen, and I think that's misconduct.
Thank you. Anybody, anybody else like to speak? Seeing none, motion to close to the public.
Offer.
Roll call.
I want to stop the time, sorry. Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Greenman is absent. Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Public comment from the council?
But thank you for coming, and I think we're gonna have better days. Shut up.
Also, thank you for coming out and waiting all this while, and I wish Art Costa well in his new position, and I thank him for willing to
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
to step in and help us out during this time period. And we've advertised, and we're collecting additional, hopefully we're going to be receiving additional resumes at this time for the city manager, and we'll be very, aggressive in our pursuit of filling this as soon as possible. Thanks again for your support and for being here today.
Dave?
I want to thank everybody for coming out, and hopefully we'll see you on the 4th of July in better times.
I too want to thank everybody. I want to thank Mr. Costa for filling in his position, especially at this tough time. It's not going to be
Thank
an
you,
easy, not going to be an easy task at this time, but I appreciate the help. Thank everybody for coming on this Thursday morning. It's an unusual time to have a council meeting, but needed to be done. And this is a beginning of a process. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.
If I may, Mayor, I would
Yes.
like to thank you for your support, the Mayor and Council, and I'll continue to do my best for the city.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor?
Motion to adjourn, please. Motion.
Offer.
Roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.